Ladies and gentlemen, friends, dreamers, seekers of abundance. Let me start with a question. If I told you there are 7 words powerful enough to change your financial destiny overnight, would you believe me? Most people would doubt it. They'd think, how could words possibly create wealth? But think about it. Every empire began with words. Every business started with a conversation. Every fortune began with an idea spoken into existence. Words are seeds. And like seeds, they grow into experiences. Florence Scovel Shinn, a brilliant metaphysical teacher of the early 20th century, taught that the universe responds not to our fears, but to our words of faith. So today, I'm going to share the exact 7 words that can unlock the flow of money, opportunities, and abundance into your life. But before I reveal them, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a farmer. He has a bag of seeds. He walks to his field and plants them. Some people say, oh, those are just tiny seeds, nothing will happen. But he knows better. With time, care, and sunlight, those seeds grow into a harvest. Your words are those seeds. Every phrase you speak plants something in the soil of your future. Now, here's the problem. Most of us have been planting weeds. We say things like, money is hard to come by. I'll never get ahead. I can't afford it. And then, we wonder why we keep struggling. But the moment you shift your words, you shift your harvest. So here they are. The exact 7 words Florence Scovel Shinn taught. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Let's break it down. Instant, wealth doesn't need to take forever. Opportunities can appear overnight. 1 phone call. 1 new client. 1 inspired idea. Constant, true wealth isn't a lucky break, it's a steady flow. You deserve consistency, not chaos. Abundant, there is no shortage. Money is not scarce. There's more than enough for you, for me, for everyone. Supply, your source isn't your job, your boss, or the economy. Your source is higher, deeper, infinite. Now imagine if you walked out of here today, and every time you faced a bill, a doubt, or a fear, instead of saying, I can't, you said these words. When the rent is due, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. When you're launching a business, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. When you're scared about the future, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. It shifts your energy. It shifts your vibration. And it shifts the results you attract. Let me share a story. A woman once told Florence she needed $1,000 immediately. She had no idea how it would come. Florence told her to speak these 7 words with faith. The woman obeyed. Within days, unexpected money flowed her way. A forgotten debt was repaid. A business opportunity opened. The exact $1,000 came in, just in time. Coincidence? Or the power of words? Friends, this isn't magic. It's alignment. When you speak these words, you stop begging life and start commanding it. You declare that you are connected to an infinite source that never runs dry. So tonight, when you go to bed, speak them. Tomorrow morning, when you rise, speak them. When doubt comes knocking, speak them. Because the wealth you seek is not outside of you. It's waiting inside your belief, your courage, and your words. Say it with me now. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Say it like you mean it. Again. Louder. Stronger. With conviction. Because those 7 words are not just a prayer. They are a declaration. A contract with the universe. A seed that guarantees a harvest. And when you dare to plant them in faith, you'll find wealth doesn't take years. Sometimes, it comes overnight. Thank you. Following are the key points you will listen in this video. Words are seeds, they shape your financial future. Negative words plant scarcity, positive words plant abundance. Florence Scovel Shinn's 7 words are, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. These words shift mindset from fear to faith. Speaking them with conviction attracts unexpected opportunities and money. Wealth responds to alignment, not desperation. Faithful words unlock flow. Words are seeds, they shape your financial future. That truth may sound simple, maybe even too simple, But when you lean into it, when you let it sink into your bones, you realize it is one of the most powerful principles for creating the life you desire. Imagine walking into a vast, empty field. The soil is rich, dark, alive with possibility. You're holding a small pouch filled with seeds. To the untrained eye, those seeds look ordinary, maybe even insignificant. But you know the truth. Inside each one is an entire forest waiting to emerge. A single apple seed doesn't just produce an apple, it produces an apple tree, which produces apples for years, each apple containing more seeds, which can grow more trees. That's exponential growth from something so small, so easy to overlook. Now, take a moment and think about your words in the same way. Every word you speak is a seed. Each phrase is planted in the soil of your subconscious mind, and that soil never argues, never questions, it simply accepts. It receives whatever you plant and sets about growing it. If you say, money is hard to come by, that seed takes root. If you repeat, I never have enough, that becomes your harvest. If every day you speak doubt, fear, or limitation, what do you think grows in your life? Weeds. And then you find yourself surrounded by financial struggle, not because life is cruel, but because you unknowingly planted those struggles with your own tongue. Florence Scovel Shinn once wrote, "Your word is your wand." Think about that. A wand directs energy, focuses power, and creates outcomes. Every time you speak, you are waving that wand. You are shaping unseen forces into visible reality. And here's the part most people don't realize. Your words don't just shape your inner world, they shape how others treat you too. If you walk into a room and say, I'm always broke, people unconsciously see you as less capable, less resourceful. They don't offer opportunities because you've already declared you're unworthy of them. But if you walk in and say, I always find a way. Opportunities flow to me, people feel that energy. They respond to your conviction. Doors open because your words opened them first. Let me share a story. Years ago, I knew a man named David who was constantly complaining about money. He would say things like, I'm cursed when it comes to finances, or even if I get a raise, something will happen and take it all away. And sure enough, every time money came in, a car would break down, a bill would arrive, or an emergency would drain his account. One day I asked him, David, do you realize how much energy you're putting into telling your life what you don't want? He laughed nervously and said, well, I'm just being realistic. But here's the question, is realism describing what already is, or is it planting what's going to be? Because realism is often just another word for fear, and fear is a terrible gardener. Contrast David's story with another friend, Maria. Maria had grown up in poverty, and by the time she was an adult, she had every reason to believe she'd always struggle. But she made a choice. She decided that her words would never again reflect lack. She would say, even when her pockets were empty, I am surrounded by abundance. Money finds me in the most unexpected ways. At first, it felt strange to her. It felt like lying. But she kept going. She treated those words like seeds, faithfully planting them day after day. And slowly, life began to shift. She got a small promotion at work. Then an old client resurfaced and offered her freelance projects. Then, almost miraculously, she received a check in the mail for a tax refund she didn't even know she was owed. Her garden began to grow, not overnight, but steadily, richly, until one day she looked around and realized she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. The difference between David and Maria wasn't education. It wasn't background. It wasn't luck. It was words. David's words dug him deeper into struggle. Maria's words lifted her into abundance. Both of them planted seeds, but they chose different ones. That choice made all the difference. Think about your own life. How often do you casually speak words of lack? How many times have you said, I can't afford that, or that will never happen for me? Every time you do, you're handing your future a blueprint of limitation. But you have the power to change that blueprint right now. You can begin replacing those declarations with words that affirm abundance, strength, and possibility. And it doesn't matter if your current reality looks the opposite. Remember, the seed doesn't look like the tree it will become. The seed doesn't even hint at the orchard hidden inside it. Yet the potential is there, waiting. Another way to think about it is like programming a GPS. If you tell your GPS, "Take me to Poverty Street," it will faithfully guide you there. If you tell it, "Take me to Abundance Avenue," it will reroute you in that direction. Your words are those instructions. They tell your subconscious where to lead you. And the subconscious, once programmed, doesn't argue. It doesn't say, "Wait, do you really mean that?" It simply follows. That's why speaking words of abundance even when you don't feel abundant is not lying, it's programming. It's giving your inner GPS the right destination. There's also science behind this. Neuroscientists have discovered that our brains are wired through something called neuroplasticity. The more we repeat certain phrases, the stronger those neural pathways become. In other words, your words literally rewire your brain. And when your brain changes, your actions change. Your energy changes. The way people respond to you changes. Suddenly, opportunities that seemed invisible before begin to appear, because you've tuned yourself to a different frequency. Imagine walking into a garden store with 2 packets of seeds. One is labeled scarcity. The other is labeled abundance. You can only plant one. Which one do you choose? Every sentence you speak is like opening one of those packets. Every conversation is like walking through your garden, dropping those seeds into the soil. A month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, you're going to be living in the garden you planted. The question is, will it be filled with weeds of lack or orchards of wealth? When Florence Scovel Shinn said, "Your word is your wand," she was inviting us to see speech not as casual noise, but as sacred creation. She was reminding us that life listens to what we say. And when you recognize that power, you stop throwing words around carelessly. You begin to speak with intention. You begin to plant carefully, deliberately, knowing that your harvest depends on it. And maybe you're wondering, but what if I've already planted years of negative seeds? What if my garden is full of weeds? Here's the beauty, you can start replanting today. You can choose new words, new seeds, and as you nurture them, the old weeds lose their power. Slowly, steadily, the garden of your life transforms. One day, you'll look back and barely recognize the field you once lived in, because it will be overflowing with abundance, and you'll know you created it, one word at a time, one seed at a time. Have you ever noticed how quickly a single negative word can change the entire atmosphere of a room? Someone could be smiling, the day could be going well, and then suddenly one phrase like "that's impossible" or "we can't afford it" is spoken, and the energy shifts. Shoulders slump. Hope fades. Possibility shrinks. That's the hidden power of words. They don't just describe reality, they shape it. And when the words we choose are negative, we end up planting seeds of scarcity that grow into forests of limitation. Think of a child who hears, over and over again, "We can't afford that." Those words sink into the subconscious. They grow roots. The child grows up not just believing money is scarce, but feeling it in their bones. As an adult, even if they make more money than their parents ever did, they still live with the constant fear of running out. They pinch pennies, not because they have to, but because the seed of scarcity is alive in them. The words they heard became the words they repeated, and those words became the harvest of their life. Scarcity begins as a whisper. It's that inner voice that says, "There's not enough. Not enough money. Not enough opportunity. Not enough time." And with each repetition, the whisper grows louder. Until one day, it feels like a shout that drowns out every dream you ever had. And yet, it all started with words, tiny, seemingly harmless words. I once met a woman named Claire who had incredible talent as an artist. Her paintings were breathtaking, vivid, emotional, full of life. But every time she talked about her work, she said, "I'll never make money with this." Artists always struggle. People don't pay for real art anymore. Those words, spoken with conviction, became her reality. She sold a few pieces here and there, but most of her paintings piled up in her tiny apartment. She couldn't see that it wasn't her art that lacked value, it was her words that had locked her out of abundance. By declaring scarcity, she closed the very doors that could have led to opportunity. But here's the beautiful flip side. Just as negative words plant scarcity, positive words plant abundance. Imagine a gardener walking through a barren field. In one hand, she holds seeds of weeds. In the other, she holds seeds of flowers, fruits, and towering trees. If she chooses the weeds, the field will soon choke with thorns. But if she chooses the flowers and fruits, the field will blossom with beauty and nourishment. Our words work exactly the same way. I remember a young man named Samuel who wanted to start a small bakery. He had no investors, no business background, and very little money. But he had one thing that set him apart: his words. Every day, he declared, "My bakery will thrive. People will love what I create. I am blessed with abundance." He said it so often, with such belief, that it became impossible for others not to believe him too. Friends offered to help. A neighbor lent him equipment. A cousin invested a small amount to get him started. Within a year, his bakery wasn't just surviving, it was flourishing. People lined up every morning for his fresh bread. When I asked him how he did it, he smiled and said, "I just refused to speak scarcity. I only spoke abundance." Some people may say, "Well, that's just positive thinking." But it's more than that. It's not wishful optimism, it's creation. Every positive word is like a drop of water on dry soil. It nourishes. It awakens. It attracts life. When you say, "Opportunities are everywhere," suddenly, you notice doors that were invisible before. When you declare, "Money flows to me with ease," you become open to ideas and chances that you would have overlooked while repeating, "I'm always broke." Think about the last time you faced a financial challenge. Maybe it was a bill that felt overwhelming or an expense you didn't expect. What were the first words out of your mouth? Were they words of panic, like "I'll never figure this out"? Or were they words of possibility, like "I know the solution is on its way"? That initial declaration is the seed you planted in that moment. One seed leads to stress, closed doors, and sleepless nights. The other leads to creativity, solutions, and unexpected breakthroughs. Even science backs this up. Psychologists have studied something called the self-fulfilling prophecy. It means that what you believe and speak about yourself has a way of becoming true. If a student says, "I'm terrible at math," they tend to stop trying, their performance drops, and their words become reality. But if that same student says, "I can improve at math with practice," their effort increases, their performance rises, and their words manifest into truth. The same principle applies to money, success, and abundance. Negative words fulfill scarcity. Positive words fulfill prosperity. Picture two people standing side by side, both applying for the same job. One says, "I probably won't get it. There are too many qualified people out there." The other says, "This opportunity has my name on it. If not this one, something better will come." Who do you think walks into that interview with more confidence? Who do you think the employer is drawn to? The words they spoke didn't just shape their inner mindset, they shaped how others perceived them. This is why Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings are so timeless. She reminded us that life is a mirror, it reflects back what we speak into it. If you speak fear, life reflects fear. If you speak abundance, life reflects abundance. She encouraged people to replace every negative declaration with a positive one. Instead of saying, "I'm always struggling," say, "I am surrounded by prosperity." Instead of, "I never get what I want," declare, "Everything I desire comes to me at the right time." The beauty of planting abundance with words is that it doesn't require money, status, or special skills. It's available to everyone. You can be sitting in the smallest apartment, with overdue bills stacked on the table, and still choose to speak, "I am open to unlimited supply." And the moment you do, you've planted a different seed. That seed will grow. It may sprout in an unexpected phone call, a new job, an idea that leads to income, or even a sudden gift. But it will grow, because abundance responds to its own language. So, the question you must ask yourself is this: what seeds are you planting each day? When you wake up in the morning, do you reach for scarcity words like, "I'm exhausted, I can't handle this, there's never enough"? Or do you reach for abundance words like, "Today is filled with possibility. I have everything I need. More is on its way"? Because whatever you choose, you will harvest. And remember, no harvest happens overnight. Just like a farmer doesn't see a tree the morning after planting a seed, you may not see immediate results. But don't confuse delay with denial. The seed is working beneath the surface, taking root, preparing to break through. Your job is simply to keep planting, to keep watering, to keep speaking life into your garden. One day, you'll look around and realize your field is overflowing not with weeds of lack, but with orchards of abundance. And you'll trace it all back to the words you chose, the seeds you planted, the declarations you spoke when life tried to convince you otherwise. Because negative words plant scarcity, but positive words, they plant the wealth, the peace, and the prosperity you were always meant to live. When Florence Scovel Shinn first spoke those 7 words, she wasn't simply offering a phrase to repeat. She was revealing a spiritual code, a key designed to unlock a new way of living. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. At first glance, it looks simple. Just 7 words. But like a seed that holds an entire forest, within those 7 words lies a universe of wealth, faith, and freedom. I want you to imagine a person standing at the edge of a desert. The sun is blazing, the ground cracked, the horizon endless. They are thirsty, weary, desperate for water. Around them is nothing but emptiness. In that moment, how would it feel to hear, you are standing on top of an underground river? All you need to do is dig. Suddenly, the desert is not a curse, it's a test of faith. The water is already there, waiting. And those 7 words are the shovel. They remind you that even when your eyes see nothing, supply is present, immediate, and overflowing. Let's break this declaration apart through story and image, so you can feel the depth of it. God is my instant. How often have we been trained to believe that everything takes years of struggle? We're told wealth is slow, success is for the lucky, that good things only come after sacrifice. But instant challenges that belief. Instant says miracles don't need a calendar. Opportunities can appear suddenly, like a door opening in a wall you thought was solid. Have you ever experienced that? You're worrying about money, and out of nowhere, someone offers you freelance work. Or you're stressed about a bill, and suddenly you receive a refund or a gift. That's instant supply at work. Florence was reminding us that the universe is not bound by our clocks. What looks impossible today can shift tomorrow. One phone call, one meeting, one idea. That's all it takes. Constant. Think about a waterfall. Water doesn't trickle for a day and then disappear, it pours, endlessly, tirelessly. That's what supply is meant to be in our lives, constant, unwavering. Yet how often do we live as if money is unpredictable? One month, we breathe easy, the next, we're gasping. Florence's words invite us to step out of that cycle. To believe that provision isn't a once-in-a-while event but an unbroken flow. Like oxygen, you don't worry if air will run out tomorrow. You simply breathe, knowing it's always there. What if you approached money the same way? Not with panic, but with trust, knowing that as surely as you inhale and exhale, supply will always meet you. Abundant. That word alone is like a deep breath. Abundant means overflowing, more than enough, pressed down and running over. Imagine walking into an orchard where every tree is heavy with fruit. You reach for an apple, and another drops at your feet. You turn around, and there's more than you can carry. That's abundance. And yet, so many of us walk through life as if the orchard is barren, as if there's only one piece of fruit left and we must fight for it. Scarcity thinking says, if someone else wins, I lose. Abundance thinking says, there's more than enough for all of us. Florence's words remind us to align with that truth. That the universe isn't stingy. It's generous, lavish, extravagant in its giving. Supply. This is perhaps the most liberating part of the entire declaration. Supply means source. And here's the key, it's not your job, not your boss, not the stock market, not even your clients. Those may be channels, but they are not the source. Florence used the word God not just in a religious sense but in the sense of a higher intelligence, a universal order, an infinite reservoir of good. When you anchor your trust there, you stop panicking when one channel dries up, because you know the source is untouched. Jobs come and go. Economies rise and fall. But the source of your supply remains infinite. Like a river that keeps flowing even if one stream is blocked, supply will always find a way to reach you. Now let's bring this declaration into real life. Picture someone facing eviction, terrified because the rent is due and the money is not in hand. In that moment, the instinct is to panic, to say, "I don't have it, I can't find it, it's impossible." But imagine instead, standing tall in the middle of that storm and declaring, "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply." The words shift everything. The fear loosens its grip. The energy in the room changes. And suddenly, solutions begin to appear. Maybe it's a friend who offers help. Maybe it's work that shows up unexpectedly. Maybe it's a grace period extended by the landlord. The outcome is not as important as the truth. By declaring those words, the person aligned with possibility instead of panic. And when you align with possibility, life responds. I once read about a man who desperately needed a breakthrough in his business. He was on the verge of bankruptcy. He began to repeat these 7 words daily, sometimes hourly, whenever fear rose up. At first, nothing seemed to change. But he persisted, not out of superstition but out of faith. Within weeks, an old contact reached out with a proposal. That deal not only saved his business but propelled it into growth he never imagined. Later, he said, the supply was always there. Those words didn't bring it, they opened my eyes to it. That's the key. And maybe you're listening now, thinking, but I've tried affirmations before, and nothing happened. Let me tell you this. Words without faith are like seeds thrown on concrete. But words with belief, words spoken with the energy of conviction, are like seeds planted in rich soil, watered daily. They will grow. And sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't that money shows up overnight, it's that your fear dissolves, your trust deepens, and your energy shifts. From that place, abundance naturally follows. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. 7 words that remind you the desert has water, the orchard has fruit, the river never runs dry. 7 words that turn panic into peace, scarcity into sufficiency, lack into overflow. 7 words that align you with the truth that you are not begging life for scraps, you are commanding from an infinite source that responds to your faith. And the more you speak them, not as a ritual but as a declaration, the more you feel their reality wrapping around you. Bills may still come, challenges may still arise, but your foundation will be different. Instead of shaking, you'll stand. Instead of crumbling, you'll rise. Because you'll know supply is not out there, it's already yours. And it is instant. It is constant. It is abundant. Fear is a thief. It sneaks in when the bills pile up, when the future looks uncertain, when the phone rings with news you weren't ready to hear. Fear steals your peace first, then your clarity, and finally your courage. And when fear takes over, it whispers lies. There's no way out. You'll never make it. You're on your own. We've all heard those whispers. Some of us have lived entire seasons of life drowning in them. But here's the truth. Fear is nothing more than misplaced faith. It is faith in the wrong outcome. It is believing in loss more than in gain, in failure more than in success, in lack more than in supply. And the moment you shift your words, you begin to shift your faith. That is the power of declaring, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. It's not just a phrase, it's a weapon. It cuts through fear like light slices darkness. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine walking through a dark tunnel with no end in sight. You stumble, you panic, you wonder if you'll ever get out. Then suddenly, someone hands you a flashlight. The tunnel hasn't changed, it's still dark, still long, but now you have light. You see where to place your feet. You see that the tunnel does have an end. You keep moving with confidence. That flashlight is what these words do in the face of fear. They don't always change the situation instantly, but they change you instantly. They move you from shaking in the dark to walking with faith. I remember meeting a single mother named Evelyn. She had 3 children, a low-paying job, and more bills than income. Fear was her constant companion. She used to tell me, every day, I wake up with a knot in my stomach. I don't know how I'll make it through the week. She lived in survival mode, waiting for the next crisis. Then she discovered Florence Scovel Shinn's words. At first, she said them with doubt. It felt silly, even dishonest. How can I say I have abundant supply when I can barely feed my kids? she asked. But she chose to keep repeating them. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Something remarkable happened. The bills didn't disappear overnight. The job didn't magically transform. But her fear began to loosen its grip. Instead of panic, she felt calm. Instead of dread, she felt possibility. And from that calm, she started thinking differently. She asked for extra shifts at work. She reached out to a friend about childcare. She found new ways to stretch her income. Within months, she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was slowly building stability. She told me, the situation didn't change first. I did. And then the situation followed. That's what faith does. Fear says, look at the problem. Faith says, look at the supply. Fear locks you into paralysis. Faith frees you into action. And the bridge between them is your words. Every time you declare those 7 words, you are choosing faith over fear, vision over panic, light over darkness. Consider how your body responds to fear. Your heart races, your stomach tightens, your breath shortens. It's as if your whole being contracts. Now think of how you feel when you're at peace, when you trust that things will work out. Your shoulders drop, your breathing steadies, your mind clears. That state is where creativity, solutions, and opportunities come. And what gets you there? Words. A simple declaration that reminds your spirit, you are not abandoned. You are supplied. Let's look at this from another angle. Think of fear as static on a radio. You're trying to hear the music, but all you get is crackling noise. You twist the dial, searching for a clear signal. Suddenly, the music comes through, rich and beautiful. That clear signal is faith. Those 7 words are the dial that tunes you in. Without them, all you hear is static. With them, you hear the harmony of abundance. Even history shows us the power of words to shift fear into faith. Leaders in times of crisis don't deny the danger, but they speak courage. When Winston Churchill said, "We shall never surrender," he was planting faith in a nation drowning in fear. When Martin Luther King Jr. declared, "I have a dream," he was calling people out of despair into hope. Words ignite faith not only in individuals but in entire movements. And if words can move nations, don't you think they can move your finances, your opportunities, your life? Florence Scovel Shinn understood that fear thrives on repetition. Every time you say, "I can't," you water fear's roots. Every time you say, "I'll never get ahead," you give it sunlight. But when you replace those phrases with "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply," you starve fear. You deny it power. You stop rehearsing disaster and start rehearsing provision. And the more you rehearse provision, the more your life begins to reflect it. I once heard of a businessman on the verge of losing everything. Investors pulled out, debts piled up, and fear was eating him alive. He couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Then someone gave him Florence's 7 words. He began saying them day and night. At first, nothing changed except him. He grew calmer. He started making decisions with clarity instead of panic. He found creative solutions he never would have seen in fear. Eventually, he saved the business, turned it around, and later said, "Those words didn't just keep my company alive, they kept me alive." Here's what's crucial to understand: fear will always come knocking. Faith doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means you don't let fear make the final decision. You answer fear with words of truth. You declare, "I hear you, but I know supply is greater. I know provision is here. I know abundance is mine." That declaration doesn't just silence fear, it transforms it into fuel. Imagine a stormy sea. Waves crashing, winds howling, your boat rocking violently. Fear tells you the storm will swallow you whole. Faith tells you the storm will pass, that calm waters are ahead. The storm may rage just as fiercely, but your spirit holds steady. That's the shift these 7 words create. They don't deny the storm, they anchor you through it. And here's the beauty: once you experience that shift, you never see challenges the same way again. A bill is no longer a threat, it's an opportunity for faith. A setback is no longer proof of lack, it's proof of growth. Every moment that once triggered panic becomes a chance to speak, "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply." And every time you do, Fear loses ground while faith gains strength. So when fear whispers, answer loudly. When doubt knocks, respond boldly. When scarcity looms, declare abundance. Because fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One will always drive out the other. And the words you choose determine which one wins. There is something magnetic about conviction. You can hear two people say the exact same phrase, but only one makes your skin tingle, your heart believe, your spirit rise. Why? Because one speaks from doubt, and the other from certainty. Words without conviction are like seeds thrown on concrete, they never take root. But words spoken with conviction dig deep into the soil of the universe, and the harvest comes, often in ways we least expect. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Those words, when spoken softly or half-heartedly, may feel like nothing more than wishful thinking. But when you speak them with every fiber of your being, when you speak them as if the universe is leaning in to listen, something shifts. You begin to radiate an energy that draws opportunities, people, and resources to you. I once met a man named Jonathan. He had been struggling for months after losing his job. Applications sent, interviews attended, but rejection after rejection left him drained. Then he came across Florence Scovel Shinn's 7 words. At first, he muttered them without much belief. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. But then something clicked. He realized he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So he started speaking them with force, with passion, like a soldier declaring victory before the battle was won. He would stand in front of the mirror, look himself in the eye, and declare, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Within 2 weeks, a former colleague reached out unexpectedly. I don't know why, but you came to mind, she said. She introduced him to a client who needed exactly the skills Jonathan had. That opportunity turned into a contract that not only paid his bills but set him on the path to launching his own business. Jonathan told me, it felt like the words unlocked something. Like I sent out a signal, and the universe answered. That's the secret. Conviction is a signal. It tells life, I'm ready. And life responds to readiness with provision. Think of an actor on stage. When they deliver their lines with hesitation, the audience disengages. But when they deliver with conviction, the room leans forward. Every word lands. Every eye is fixed. The script hasn't changed, the delivery has. And that delivery makes the difference between a forgettable performance and a standing ovation. Your declarations work the same way. Conviction turns them from empty sounds into powerful commands. Let me tell you about Sarah, a teacher who longed to buy her first home. On paper, it looked impossible. Her salary was modest, her savings slim, and every financial advisor told her it wasn't realistic. But Sarah refused to let the word impossible be the final word. She began declaring daily, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Not timidly, not as a quiet hope, but with fiery conviction. She walked around her tiny rented apartment saying it out loud, her voice echoing against the walls. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. Months later, her uncle, who had been distant for years, reconnected with her. During their conversation, he said, I've been thinking about helping someone in the family, and you came to mind. He offered to give her the down payment for a home, no strings attached. Within a year, Sarah was holding the keys to a house she once thought she'd never afford. She told me, tears in her eyes, the money came in the most unexpected way. But it wasn't just luck, I had already claimed it with my words. When you speak with conviction, you are not begging. You are not hoping. You are commanding. And the universe respects a command. Florence Scovel Shinn said, you will be a failure until you impress the subconscious with the conviction you are a success. This is done by making an affirmation which clicks. That click is conviction. It's the moment your words stop being theory and become truth. But let's be honest, conviction doesn't come overnight. It grows with repetition. At first, your words may feel weak, even false. But every time you repeat them, you water the seed. And one day, something changes. The words roll off your tongue with authority. You no longer just say them, you embody them. That's when opportunities start appearing, because you've shifted your vibration to match abundance. Imagine standing at the edge of a canyon. You shout, "Hello." The echo returns instantly. Your conviction doesn't just travel outward, it bounces back to you. The universe echoes your words the same way. If you speak lack with conviction, "I never have enough," life echoes, "You never have enough." But when you declare, "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply," life echoes back opportunities, money, and support. I knew a musician named Carlos who lived gig to gig, barely scraping by. He often said, "The music industry is brutal. Nobody makes it unless they're lucky." And that belief shaped his reality. But after attending a workshop where he learned about Florence's teachings, he made a radical shift. He began speaking the 7 words before every performance, every meeting, every recording session. At first, it was ritual. Soon, it became conviction. Then something remarkable happened. After one small show, a stranger approached him, saying, "I love your music. Have you ever thought about licensing it for film?" That conversation turned into a partnership that brought him more income than years of random gigs combined. Carlos said later, "I think I was finally aligned. My words called the right people to me." And isn't that how abundance often works? It doesn't always drop a bag of money on your doorstep. It sends people, ideas, and chances your way. Conviction clears the static so you can recognize them. Without conviction, you might miss the stranger in the crowd. With conviction, you attract them. Here's the practical key: conviction doesn't mean shouting louder. It means believing deeper. It means letting the words sink from your lips to your heart until they're no longer a hope but a knowing. And once you know, you carry yourself differently. You walk into interviews with confidence. You negotiate deals with strength. You take risks you would have avoided in fear. And all of that opens the door for money and opportunity to flow. So if you want to test this, try it tonight. Stand in front of the mirror. Look yourself in the eyes. Don't whisper. Don't mumble. Declare with conviction, "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply." Say it until you feel the shift. Say it until your shoulders drop and your chest expands. Say it until the words are no longer outside of you, but alive inside you. Then watch as life begins to rearrange itself to match your declaration. Because the world doesn't just respond to what you say. It responds to how you say it. And when you speak these words with conviction, the impossible bends, the invisible appears, and the unexpected arrives right on time. There is a difference between chasing money and attracting it. One is fueled by desperation, the other by alignment. And here's the truth most people never hear: wealth is not a reward for stress, panic, or sleepless nights. Wealth is a response. A response to your energy, your belief, your alignment. Think about water for a moment. If you squeeze your fists and try to grab it, it slips away. The tighter you hold, the less you keep. But when you relax your hands and let them open, the water fills your palms. Wealth is the same. Desperation clutches and chases, but alignment receives and allows. Many people live in a constant state of financial desperation. They wake up worrying about bills. They repeat, "I have to make money. I need money now. If I don't, I'll lose everything." And what happens? More struggle. More scarcity. Because life doesn't respond to begging, it responds to belief. Florence Scovel Shinn once wrote, "The invisible forces are ever working for man who is always pulling the strings himself, though he does not know it." That means even in panic, we're creating. But what are we creating? When we speak from fear, we attract more of what we fear. When we speak from faith, we unlock the flow. Let me tell you a story about Michael, a restaurant owner. During a financial downturn, his business nearly collapsed. Customers stopped coming, bills piled up, and every night he sat at his desk with his head in his hands, whispering, "I can't make it. I can't make it." His words were soaked in desperation. And the more he said it, the truer it became. Then, in his darkest moment, he remembered something his grandmother used to say, "Money flows to a calm heart." He decided to test it. Instead of panicking, he began aligning himself with faith. He started each day declaring, "God is my instant, constant, abundant supply." At first, the words felt empty. But over time, they shifted his state. His shoulders relaxed. His energy changed. And instead of obsessing over what was wrong, he began seeing what was possible. He changed the menu, simplified operations, and began posting short, authentic videos of his cooking online, something he'd never thought of before. Within months, those videos went viral, bringing new customers from far beyond his local area. Opportunities for catering and collaborations opened up. The business not only survived, it thrived. Michael told me, it wasn't the menu alone. It was me. The moment I stopped acting like a drowning man clawing for survival and started acting like a man connected to infinite supply, doors opened. That is alignment. Desperation whispers, there's not enough. Alignment declares, I live in overflow. Desperation chases opportunities, begging to be chosen. Alignment attracts opportunities, because energy speaks louder than words. Picture a magnet. It doesn't run around the table begging paperclips to come closer. It doesn't sweat, strain, or plead. It simply sits in its power, and everything it is aligned to comes to it. You are the magnet. The paperclips are money, opportunities, and support. But the strength of your magnet comes from faith, not fear. I once heard a woman share her testimony at a small gathering. She said she had been drowning in debt and praying every night, God, please send me money. I can't survive. Nothing changed. Her desperation kept her stuck. Then, after reading Florence's writings, she shifted her prayer. Instead of begging, she declared, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. I am aligned with divine provision. The very next week, her employer offered her a new role that paid significantly more. Around the same time, an old friend reached out to repay a loan she had forgotten about. The timing felt miraculous. She said, the moment I stopped asking like a beggar and started declaring like a child of God, everything shifted. This is the essence. The universe doesn't respond to panic, it responds to power. And power is born of faith. Think of a river. When you are aligned, it feels like you are floating downstream, carried by the current. The flow brings resources, connections, and blessings right to you. When you are desperate, you are thrashing upstream, exhausting yourself, making little progress, and missing the beauty around you. The river hasn't changed, it's still full of water, still flowing. The only difference is your position in it. So how do you move from desperation to alignment? By shifting your words. Instead of saying, I need money, say, money flows to me with ease. Instead of, I don't know how I'll pay this, say, my supply is instant, constant, and abundant. Instead of, I'm so unlucky, say, I am aligned with divine timing. This isn't about denial. It's about declaration. Your words aren't ignoring reality, they are shaping a new one. There's a story of a farmer who faced a drought. Every day, his neighbors walked the dry fields, cursing the sky, saying, no rain will ever come. But this farmer took a different approach. He stood on his land and said, the rain is coming. My fields will drink. My harvest will return. His neighbors laughed. But weeks later, clouds rolled in, and the rain poured. His soil, already prepared in faith, received it fully. The others, too defeated to prepare, had nothing to show. The difference wasn't the weather. It was alignment. The same is true with wealth. Opportunities are always circling. Money is always moving. The question is, are you aligned to receive it, or are you so clouded by desperation that you can't see it when it arrives? One of Florence's most powerful lines was, man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. If you only see lack, you'll only receive lack. But if you declare, God is my instant, constant, abundant supply, you train yourself to see overflow and life delivers. Remember this, scarcity is noise, abundance is signal. Desperation tunes you into static. Alignment tunes you into flow. The money was always there. The opportunities were always there. The supply never stopped. It was waiting for you to stop begging and start believing. And when you do, when you finally align with faith instead of fear, wealth doesn't crawl, it flows. It comes through channels you couldn't predict, people you never expected, and timing you couldn't orchestrate. It feels like coincidence, but it's not. It's alignment. Because wealth has always been less about what you chase, and more about what you allow. LS too big. Say it when the world tells you no. Say it until life has no choice but to echo back your yes. Because wealth doesn't wait for the hesitant. It rushes to the bold. It flows to the faithful. It bows to the aligned. So tonight, before you sleep, declare it. Tomorrow morning, before you rise, declare it. Throughout the day, when you're tempted to give in to worry, declare it. And do it with fire, with certainty, with unshakable belief. God is my instant, constant, abundant supply. 7 words. 1 truth. Infinite possibilities. And when you dare to live them, not just speak them, not just wish them, but live them, you will see that wealth doesn't take years. Sometimes it takes a sentence. Sometimes it takes a shift. Sometimes it takes just 7 words. And when you speak them, with faith, with conviction, with alignment, your life will never be the same. So remember this: you are not waiting for abundance, abundance is waiting for you.